only can you see me instead of can you hear me. Maybe the table. I was going to tell the years they were watching. Well, my talk is a little bit about the comparison of children eating in Italy as opposed to children eating in America today. And some of the statistics that I've read they're pretty dismal, really, because things are changing in Italy just as they are here. 44% of Americans eat out 4.8 times a week. Think how much money that is, not only how bad that is for your health. In Italy, the main meal of the day is eaten in the middle of the day. And that is why there is that 4-hour lapse that when you go to Italy as a tourist and you're upset because you can't go shopping between 1 and 4 because the Italians are home having dinner. When I started thinking about what I was going to talk about, I thought, there are 3 trends that I see here, why things are happening the way they are. One is time. Some of the other speakers have spoken to this. One is interest. In Italy, there's great interest in their food. It's a dirt to dinner concept. And one is reverence, the reverence for food. And that is something that we do not have in our culture. We do not have a reverence for food. We do not have an old historical food history. In Italy, there's tremendous reverence for food, and I want to give you a story. I was in a store in Italy, and I was looking for pears because I was having some Italian friends come for dinner. I was cooking for them, which was a little, brave for me to try. But so I went into this store, and I asked the signora, I said, "You're not supposed to touch any of the fruit." I said, "I need some pears." And she said to me, she said, "Well, what are you going to do with the pears?" I said, "Well, I'm going to make a tart. I want to make a tart." So she brought me over to where the pears were, and she said, "Well, you don't want this pear. This pear is duro. It's hard. But you do want this pear because this pear is a little morbido. It's a little softer." And she took the time to talk to me about these pears. Now, when was the last time you walked into and you were looking for somebody and someone just kind of brushed you off and said, "Over there"? I've gotten used now to one of my favorite tools in the grocery store when I go is that little bell in the produce. I ring the bell, and out comes some sheepish-looking guy, and I say, "You see these green beans over here? They're little wimpy and wimpy looking." And I just take a couple and I break them and I say, "You see, they don't snap at all." I said, "Well, let me go to the back room and see what we have." And out comes a nice crate of, fresh beans that they open up for me. I do this all the time. I'm always I'm happy to get something great because I'm usually getting things out of my own garden. So when I have to go to the grocery store, it's not very much fun for me. So there's that reverence for food that Italians have. And the fact that they take the time, that's the other crucial part here. We don't have time. We have time for Mad Men. We have time, children spend 6 hours on their iPad per day. We have time for all these other things. But we do not have time to sit down together and have a meal. I'm not saying that you should do this every day. It would be ideal if you did. I come from a background where that happened every day. Every day you had a sit-down meal, and every day in my house we have a sit-down meal. As Sally said, you can do it. You can make every excuse in the world as to why you do not have time to cook, but you do have time to cook. And it could take you as little as 10, 15 minutes if you learn to keep staples in 3 places in your kitchen. 1 in your refrigerator, 1 in your freezer, and 1 in whatever you call a pantry. Now, in Italy, the notion of going to the grocery store is just becoming popular, the supermercato. Before that, every day you went to the store and you bought everything fresh. And you went to individual stores. You went to the macelleria to get your meat. You went to the fish store to get your fish. You went to the panificio to get your bread. You went over here to get your pasta. Every day. Well, who has this kind of time anymore? Even in Italy, things are changing. You see it in the larger cities. In the larger cities now, this is starting to disappear. The supermercato, the pub, has taken over. But still, in the smaller towns, this is where you still find that family unit where people sit down every day and they have a meal. And you know what that does? Opens up conversation. This is what we do not have. It opens up conversation. I remember at home when I was a kid, we all sat together. If somebody died, you ate. Somebody was getting married, you ate. Somebody had a problem, you ate. Because at the table is where you solve all these problems. In fact, there's a really nice saying in Italian. It goes like this. A tavola non si vecchia mai. At the table, nobody grows old. And the reason that nobody grows old at the table is because you're always bringing something new to it to talk about. Do we talk to our kids today? It's a wonder that they don't know anything about food. Just the other day, I was in the grocery store, and this young clerk, she must have been about 18 or so. I didn't mean to knock that thing over. I'm checking out with a honeydew melon. A honeydew melon. Now, how hard is this? And she looks at me and she says, "What is this?" Well, I could have understood this if it was some exotic plant from Mumbai. It was a honeydew melon. And I thought to myself, and I told her, you know, what it was. And I said, "You ought to try it." I said, "It's really this time of year, so when you're sick of pears and apples, you know, a melon sounds pretty good, even if it is coming from Honduras." I thought to myself, now, why didn't she know that? She didn't know that because someone never exposed her to it. We have to expose our children to good food. We have to stop being, in a word, lazy. I mean, I have a job too, but I cook every day. And if I'm not there, I leave the meal for my husband so he enjoys it. Right, Ginny? I get that question all the time. Do you cook at home? No. Of course I cook at home. And I know that the food that I cook is helping our family. It's making our family sit down and talk to one another. I know that it's good food. I know how much salt is in it. I know how much sugar is in it. I know how much fat is there. You can't get that when you go out to dinner 4.8 times a week. And then we wonder, why do we have children who have diabetes before the age of 10 years old? Why are we having all of these sudden illnesses that we were just talking at our table earlier about? All of a sudden everybody's gluten intolerant. You know, yes, I mean, there are people who are, but I don't think we have seen hysteria over it the way we have now. Going into the supermarket, you see all this gluten-free stuff. It's just aisles and aisles now of gluten-free. We have to come back to the basics. That's what we have to do. We all scratch our heads and say, well, what is the best diet? What should we be eating? What shouldn't we be eating? Chocolate's good today, tea's good tomorrow, coffee's no good at all. You know, this all comes down to common sense. I'm sorry, folks, but that's what it comes down to. It comes down to educating yourself about what good food is, knowing what good food is. And as Sally said, you want tomato sauce in a jar? By the time you get in the car, drive, get there, find a parking space, go in, get the tomato sauce off the shelf, read the ingredients on the label, half of which you can't even understand, pay $7 for this jar of tomato sauce. What are you doing to yourself? In 15 minutes, I can show you how to make a fresh tomato sauce, which will be a whole lot better than that jar of ragu that you took off the shelf. And this is what we're doing to our children. We're feeding them convenience food because we are too busy. And they should be our top priority, because if we don't educate them, then you get the next generation of the non-knowing honeydew melon society. Over the years, 25 years now, we've been producing Ciao Italia. We have been trying to educate people about what real Italian food is. And one of the first things I said on one of my very first shows was that there is no such thing as Italian food. There's only regional food. And that is true for where we live as well. And regional should define how you think about your cooking and what you're going to cook. You should cook local, in season, and all of that. And we can thank the slow food movement that started in Bra, in the Piedmont region of Italy with Carlo Bedrini, for bringing this awareness to us. But the Italians have always been at the forefront of good, nutritious food. Just look at what our government recommends as the food, a basic food pyramid that we should follow is the Italian food pyramid. It's always been there front and center. And why is that? Because if you look at it, you'll see that the majority of what Italians eat fall into the grains section, the largest part of the pyramid. So pasta is not a bad food. It is a bad food here because of how much pasta we heap on people. Here, a pound of pasta feeds 2. In Italy, a pound of pasta feeds 8. And pasta is Italy's national dish and would be unheard of not to have it every day. Some people have it every day. But they're only eating 3/4 of a cupful cooked. And they're not dousing it with some noxious sauce where you can't even see the pasta. It's usually coated with a good extra virgin olive oil, maybe some fresh herbs, maybe a little fish, whatever it is. So the Italian diet is a good diet. Olive oil is the cooking fat. These are the things that children in Italy have grown up with. Now what I've seen in my last visits to Italy is this, that the 30-somethings, they are starting to move away from their own food culture. Much as you see here, some of these millenniums, you know, they can't tell you how to bake a potato. I conducted a survey on this when I was doing the book signing. I had them go through the line and go, do you know how to bake a potato? You know, really, it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. And what's happening in Italy is that now we have replacing dinner because you've got that 2-income family and you've got these young people out there working to pay the taxes in Italy, which are 40% of their income. They're, instead of going home for dinner, they're going to the antipasto bar. Just like you see here, young people, they go out and they have tapas or they have, you know, the small plate thing. You know, the little courses, a little tidbit here, a little bit. That's not dinner. That's not dinner. But they have no time to cook either, so it's sad what's happening. What is dinner in Italy? Well, meals are served in a pattern, and this is what children grow up with. They grow up knowing that breakfast is really not what we think of breakfast at all. It's not cereal and pancakes and all of that. Children usually have a biscuit for breakfast, a biscotto. And when I had a young boy staying with us from Reggio Emilia, that was what he asked me for breakfast. He wanted a biscotto, cookies. I thought, oh, that's strange. And then the main meal is in the middle of the afternoon. And that usually starts with the first course. That's the difference, too, between the way we eat and the way Italians eat. Here we eat with everything on one plate. Everything's on one plate. No, Italians eat in courses, small courses. So maybe you have an antipasti. So you have some prosciutto, a few olives, you might have some marinated vegetables. I've got 2 minutes to go. Things like that. First course could be a soup, a rice, a small amount of pasta. Main course is a small piece of meat, maybe 4 ounces, a piece of fish. What's on it? A good drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. This comes with a little contorni, which are vegetables, on the side. Again, a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, maybe flavored with a little garlic. Dessert, fruit. At night, you might have something very light, like a pizza. And a pizza is not a bad food if it's prepared correctly. It's not what we think of as heaped high with all kinds of 4 cheeses and all that kind of stuff. It's very lightly topped with a topping. And that, it comprises what Italians eat and what children have grown up with, learning how to eat in courses instead of eat and run. If we do have a meal at home here, it's eat and run because we got to get to the next thing. We haven't even thought about what was on our plate, and that's the difference. We need that time to reflect and nurture in order for us to be a healthy society and to raise healthy kids. So part of my mission over the years, of course, has been to educate people about what real Italian food is, regional food, and to show them where food comes from. We do 2 episodes every year on our show directly from my home garden, so that we can show you that from a seedling, as you are doing with your student groups, to the table, this is where food comes from. It doesn't come in a plastic container wrapped in plastic wrap. So I'll take a couple questions, and I hope that you will all go out armed with all the information that you got here tonight from all these good, wonderful speakers, and do what you can do to bring more awareness to our young people. Thank you.
So we're going to bring up the whole panel and take some questions. We are a little bit tight on time, but if people could stay just for a few more minutes, we'll take a couple questions. On the way out, actually they're going to be handing out evaluations now, so you can kind of work on those. We'll get out all the magazines, Chop Chop, Northeast Flavor, and then as you come out, if you'd like to get a book signed and purchase one, they'll be ready and waiting for you. So why don't we take a couple questions? Anybody?
They're saturated in olive oil.
I think my new favorite mantra in life is going to be ring the bell. It's just awesome. If we don't speak up, if we don't ask where our food comes from, they're just going to keep giving us the same old stuff. So thanks for ringing the bell. Questions? Come on, peeps. Alex.
I have one. So my kids are not picky eaters. They love their vegetables. They like their, farm vegetables so much that they kind of complain when we buy stuff from the grocery store sometimes that it's not as flavorful and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so they're not picky eaters, but my 9-year-old boy just the other night says to me, yeah, I'm not going to cook. I'm going to marry somebody and they're going to cook for me. And I said, what? Like, oh my God. So I homeschool one of my kids, and next year will probably be both again. So obviously, this has curricular implications for me. But I just wondered if you had good ideas to make that you've used or seen that made cooking seem like manly. Like he'll go through puberty soon, right? So I know some obvious things like, oh my gosh, you want to get a great, fun, pretty woman, cook for her. That's kind of the obvious. But I've got to have an approach that's catchy, for almost, an upper elementary boy.
I would just have him help you. I would just say I'm making a salad, throw the tomatoes in. Say it again?
I've done some of that.
I don't think you can, well, I can't answer this.
What does he like to eat, number one?
Oh, a lot. Soup.
Well, no, name a specific food.
Oh, raw vegetables cut up.
Okay.
Sauteed greens with soy sauce. Soup, lots of soup. Those are his favorites.
Well, why don't you have him make a soup with you? Why can't he make?
That's what I'm thinking, right? Just make soup with every meal.
Take him to the grocery store with you.
Oh yeah, he does that.
And have him pick out the vegetables that he wants. Talk about the soup that you're going to make. Tell him, say, why don't we create a new soup? You really don't need a recipe to cook. You really don't. It's like, a painter who has a blank palette in front of him. He's got all these paints, but he's got an idea in his head on what he wants to put on that palette. This is how you can get to start these kids thinking about food. They can taste it in their mind before they even taste it on their tongue. So I would take him to the store and say, now what kind of soup do you want to create? What name do you want to give it? Which vegetables would you like to put in? We should have maybe some colorful vegetables. Do you want to add some rice or something? Do you think that would be good? Maybe we could put farro in there. You could tell them about farro. Yes. Things like that. I think you have to give them a challenge.
I think Marianne's right. But I also think you right now are the rich girlfriend.
Yeah, I think so too.
So it's a lot of it is going to be how you act and you respond. And I remember when I would get a flu or be sick, I would say to my kids, make me lunch. And they would just be so thrilled, you know, because if you're the rich wife right now, you know, since you're providing for him, plus he'll be saying something different next week.
Right.
So does your husband cook?
Just a little bit.
So I think actually it's, what you're seeing is modeling. So that's one of the things that if you want him to cook, you might want to try to get.
Chastise my husband.
I don't think you should chastise him, but you know, he's modeling what he sees. So if you want him to cook, you probably need to talk to your husband about modeling.
Other questions? Does anyone want to share something that they're doing in their community?
Well, I think that one thing that comes back to me as I listen to everyone tonight, and we've actually had some discussions around this before, but I think we have to start when our kids are infants. I mean, I fed my daughter everything that we ate, not from a jar. I ground it up, I gave it to her. I didn't assume that she wouldn't like it. Were there things she didn't like? Of course there were. But if we had avocado, she had avocado. If we had green beans or broccoli or meat or whatever, it was ground up and she had it. I never assumed that she wouldn't like it unless she was spitting it out on the, you know, and then I think as she got older, I would always try to have something that she liked on the plate. I wasn't making another meal, but, you know, if I thought she might not care for something, I made sure that there was something there that she would eat. And today she's here with us. Here with us, you know, enjoying, you know, most of what gets put in front of her, and whether she's making it or not. But I think that I understand that if you didn't start that way, you have to fix the problem when they're older, but it just seems to me that if we took it a step further and started when they first got their first bites, that we would not have anywhere near the problem that we have today.
I agree, and that's what we're trying to do with Chop Chop, and actually we're starting a new column called Chop Chop Junior, so it's starting sort of as soon as they can start. But I think this kind of, I don't believe in making kids taste stuff. I know most people do, but I think when you say just take one bite, there's the implication like something's wrong with it. So if you just eat it yourself, you model, and you say, whoa, this is amazing. I think they just try it. And the earlier you start, the better.
Why don't we just go down, last comment.
Okay,
Last bit of advice.
I wanted to share a short story though. Just when our youngest daughter was really little, she was the most adventurous eater. And for her 6th birthday, for her, quote, home birthday party, we had escargot and Caesar salad. But for her friend's birthday party, we had takeout pizza and Carvel ice cream. The whole peer pressure part of this is also really huge. Not only you and your husband are role models, but all the stuff they get from all their friends makes a huge impact on how kids eat. But this kid, who was then 6, is just got her first job out of college and is a food editor at a publishing company in San Francisco, editing cookbooks now. So there's hope.
Well, be fair, there's no chicken nuggets. It was always I'll have the lobster roll.
Well, I don't really have anything to add to that, but I would say that, if we have a lot of energy in the room here, I would like to see, hopefully, that we can share this with others that are not in the room here, and remember that everybody doesn't have the same resources that we have, and try to address some of that and help as we can, because food justice is actually still a big issue too.
Last, Marianne, last little Italian word of wisdom.
Well, I was just thinking, why not have your son keep a journal? Which would engage him in the whole process of learning about good foods. I mean, I think you just have to learn to be creative, but I also like your point where you started with your daughter when she was an infant, and, it wasn't an option. This is what we're eating, and this is what we're eating. So I think that's a very, very valuable statement to make. And if you're late to the party, well then I think you gotta make it fun. And so this would be a way to do it, Pick a vegetable of the week. What vegetable do we want to learn about this week? Broccoli. Where does the name come from? What is it? What is broccoli exactly? What else looks like broccoli? So I think there are ways that you can do it where, he'll get interested.
Well,
got both microphones now. Really, I thank you all, and really, the food in our world, it's such an important part of what we have to offer. I mean, from Joanne tracking these college-age students and really seeing the writing on the wall for, you know, what they're eating and the health of where they are at that point in their life. And Kathy, I really so appreciate you having that inspiration for, I wish I was Michelle Obama right now, and I'm saying to all of you, just do one thing when you get home.
You are.
Actually, I have her up there on the 2010 big moments, was Kathy going to DC. And really, Sally, making those publications that can get into the homes. And the reality is that most of you are here because we are fortunate and that we have food choices. But the reality is not everyone does. So any little bit you can do to share what you know, to pass it on, to take a little time to help the child that doesn't have the options that we might. And Marianne, I love the roots of Italian cooking. I think it is really the roots of food, and it's taking time and being in the moment. But really, I think the biggest takeaway that I would like to share is that there is a big world out there, and there are people in need, and that this information needs to spread. So anything that you can do out in your world to share it, to share a meal, to bring in a child that doesn't know anything and take the time to teach them a recipe or to cook with them, and so that they can enjoy the beauty of life, really, because at the table, beautiful things happen, breaking bread, and it is a part of our culture that we need to nurture and take care of and really keep a part of our world. So thank you for sharing your stories. We greatly appreciate it all. Thanks.